The night sky above the ruined colony was broken by fire. Smoke rose from shattered ships, and the air was heavy with the smell of metal and dust. The war had ended hours ago, but the echoes of battle still lingered, the cries of the wounded, the silence of the fallen, the shadows of fear that clung to every corner. Daniel, a human mechanic, walked carefully through the wreckage, his boots crunching on broken glass and twisted steel. He was not a soldier. He had never carried a weapon. His hands were made for tools, not for war. But now he was here, searching. He did not know what he was looking for. Maybe survivors, maybe answers, maybe just a reason to keep moving. His flashlight beam cut across the dark ruins, and then he heard it, a weak cry, soft but sharp, like the sound of life clinging to the edge. Daniel froze, his heart raced. In a place filled with death, the cry of life was louder than any explosion. He moved toward the sound, pushing debris aside, crawling through the remains of a broken corridor, until he saw her. An alien mother lay on the ground, her blue skin pale, her body covered in wounds, her breath shallow and uneven. In her arms she held a tiny bundle, wrapped in cloth. The baby glowed faintly, its small eyes closed, its chest rising and falling weakly. Daniel stopped, unsure. He had never seen such a sight before, a dying alien mother clutching her newborn child. She looked at him with desperate eyes, eyes that still burned with love though her life was fading. She tried to speak, her voice cracked and soft, words in a language Daniel did not know. But then she whispered in broken human tongue, "Please, help, my baby." Daniel's throat tightened. He had fixed engines, machines, and broken ships, but never a life, never a child. He knelt beside her, torn between fear and compassion. The alien mother lifted her trembling hand, her fingers cold against Daniel's arm. She pulled the baby closer and pushed it toward him, her eyes filled with tears. She knew her time was ending. "No, no, I can't," Daniel whispered, shaking his head. He was just a mechanic. He could not carry such a burden. But the mother's gaze cut through his fear, her eyes pleading, commanding, trusting. The baby made a faint sound, a soft whimper that pierced Daniel's heart. The glow around the child pulsed gently, like a fragile flame in the darkness. The mother's lips trembled, her last strength gathering in her words. "Protect my child, secret safe," she said, each word a struggle, each breath heavier than the last. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Something deep inside him shifted. This was no machine, no broken ship. This was life, fragile and precious, and she was giving it to him, trusting him, a stranger, a human. He reached out slowly, his hands shaking. The mother placed the baby into his arms, her touch lingering for a moment, her tears falling onto his skin, and then her hand slipped away. Her body went still, her breath faded, her eyes closed, and silence returned. But it was not the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of sacrifice. Daniel held the child close, staring at the lifeless body of the mother, a stranger who had chosen him in her final moment. The baby stirred, its glow warming his chest. Daniel swallowed hard, fear and responsibility crashing over him like a wave. He had not chosen this, but now he carried it. Somewhere in the ruins, footsteps echoed, voices shouted in a harsh alien tongue. Lights flickered in the smoke, soldiers searching. Daniel's grip tightened around the baby. His mind screamed to run, to hide, to survive, but his heart remembered the mother's eyes, her trust, her last breath. And so, with the baby against his chest, Daniel slipped into the shadows, unaware that this single moment would change not only his life, but the fate of the galaxy. Daniel moved quickly through the broken streets, the baby pressed tightly to his chest. The child's glow was faint but steady, like a small star refusing to die. The ruins around him groaned as metal beams collapsed under their own weight. Fires burned in the distance, and the sounds of soldiers echoed through the night. He ducked behind a shattered wall, trying to calm his breath. The baby stirred, letting out a soft cry that pierced the silence. Daniel froze, his heart pounding. He pressed his hand gently over the child, whispering, "Please, little one. Quiet. They will hear us." The voices grew closer, harsh alien words cutting through the smoke, their lights sweeping the ruins like hungry eyes. Daniel's mind raced. He was no fighter, no soldier. He had never held a gun. He only knew how to fix broken ships. But now he carried something more valuable than any machine, and enemies were hunting for it. He crouched low and crawled through rubble, the sharp edges tearing at his clothes. He could feel the baby's warmth against him, strange comfort in the chaos. He thought of the alien mother's eyes, filled with tears yet glowing with trust, her final words echoing in his head. "Protect my child." Daniel found a half-collapsed building and slipped inside, dust falling as the ceiling groaned above him. He settled in the shadows, holding the child close. His hands shook. His mind screamed to leave the baby, to run, to save himself. But every time he thought of it, he saw her face again, and his chest tightened with guilt. The baby shifted, tiny fingers reaching out and curling around Daniel's thumb. The mechanic froze, staring at the delicate hand gripping his rough, grease-stained skin. It was such a small thing, but it anchored him. He could not let go now. He whispered, "I don't know why she chose me, but I will not fail her." A loud crash outside broke the moment. Soldiers were searching building by building. Daniel knew he could not stay hidden for long. He looked around the ruined structure, his eyes landing on an old maintenance tunnel half covered by debris. If he could clear it, maybe he could slip away unseen. He laid the baby carefully in a corner, using scraps of cloth to cradle it. Then he pushed the rubble with all his strength, muscles burning, sweat dripping into his eyes. Piece by piece the tunnel cleared. Dust filled his lungs. But finally, a narrow path opened, just wide enough for him to crawl through. He picked up the child again, wrapping the cloth tighter around it, and crawled into the tunnel. Darkness swallowed them. The sound of soldiers grew distant, replaced by the steady beat of Daniel's heart and the soft breath of the baby. The tunnel twisted and turned, forcing him to drag himself through tight spaces. When he finally emerged, he was outside the ruined colony walls, the open night sky stretching above him, stars shining faintly beyond the haze of smoke. Daniel collapsed onto the ground, exhausted. The baby whimpering softly, he looked down at the child, and for the first time, he spoke with certainty. "I will protect you, no matter what, I promise." But even as he said it, doubts filled his mind. He had no food, no water, no plan. Enemies were hunting him, and yet he could not walk away. He remembered the way the mother's hand had slipped from his arm, her tears falling onto his skin, her trust heavier than any weapon. He would not betray it. As dawn approached, Daniel carried the baby toward the hills beyond the colony, smoke rising behind him like a scar on the horizon. Every step was heavy, but with each step, he felt the weight of his promise settle deeper into his heart. He was no longer just a mechanic wandering through ruins. He was now a guardian, and the galaxy had shifted its gaze onto him. Far in the distance, lights of enemy patrols spread across the land, searching, hunting. But Daniel did not stop. The promise of a dying mother burned brighter than his fear, and in his arms, the fragile child slept, unaware of the storm that was coming, unaware that its very existence could change the fate of worlds. And Daniel, tired, afraid, and alone, whispered into the cold morning air, "Whatever secret you carry, little one, I will protect it, even if it costs me everything." The morning sun rose weakly through the haze of smoke, its light dimmed by the destruction that had scarred the colony. Daniel moved carefully through the rocky hills beyond the ruined walls, the baby wrapped tightly in cloth against his chest. The child's faint glow pulsed softly with each breath, a living light guiding him forward. Behind him, the colony was alive with the sound of soldiers. Their patrol ships circled in the skies, their voices carried on the wind. They were searching, and Daniel knew it was not for survivors, it was for the child. He crouched low, moving between boulders and jagged cliffs, his mind racing. He had no weapons, no plan, only a promise made to a dying mother, a promise that now pushed him farther than he thought possible. The baby whimpered, its tiny voice echoing softly in the quiet morning. Daniel quickly rocked the child, whispering, "Shoo, little one, they will hear us." But he knew the sound had already carried. A patrol ship slowed above, lights sweeping the hills, searching the rocks. Daniel pressed himself into the shadows, holding the baby close, his breath shallow. The ship hovered, its engines growling like a predator waiting to strike. For a moment, Daniel thought it was over. Then the ship moved on, its lights fading into the distance. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. He knew they were closing in, and he knew they would not stop. The mother's words returned to him. Protect the child, secret safe. Daniel's mind turned those words over and over. What secret could a baby hold that was worth so much blood? Hours passed as he climbed higher into the hills, his body weak, his arms heavy. But every time he thought of resting, he saw her face again, the alien mother's final tears, the trust she had placed in him, and he forced himself onward. The baby stirred in his arms, its glow flickering brighter. Daniel frowned. Unsure, the glow pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, strange warmth spreading through his chest. It was as if the child was reaching into him, keeping him steady, keeping him strong. Then, suddenly, voices echoed close by, harsh and cruel. Daniel ducked behind a jagged rock, peering out to see 3 alien soldiers moving through the pass, weapons in hand, scanning every shadow, their faces cold and determined. One of them lifted a small device, its lights flickering as it pulsed. Daniel's stomach dropped. They were tracking the baby's glow. The child whimpered again. The glow brightened. Daniel's heart raced. He held the baby tighter, whispering desperate words. Please, stay quiet. Stay with me. Just a little longer. The soldiers turned toward the sound, their steps quickening. Daniel knew he had seconds. He looked around, his eyes falling on a narrow gap between 2 cliffs, just wide enough to slip through. Without thinking, he darted forward, clutching the baby. The rocks scraped his arms, tearing at his clothes. But he pushed through. The soldiers shouted, firing blasts that lit the air with fire. The rocks shook, fragments raining down. But Daniel kept moving. He stumbled into a hidden valley, shielded by cliffs, and fell to his knees. The baby crying now, louder, the glow bursting brighter than before. Daniel tried to hush the child. But then he saw something. Carved into the valley walls were strange markings, glowing faintly, the same glow as the baby. His breath caught, realization slowly dawning. This valley was connected to the child, maybe even made for it. The markings pulsed in rhythm with the baby's cries, as if the land itself recognized the child's presence. The soldiers' voices grew closer, echoing at the valley's edge. Daniel pressed himself against the glowing wall, holding the baby near. Suddenly the markings flared with light. The air vibrated, and a hidden door cracked open in the cliff face, revealing a dark passage beyond. Daniel stared in shock, his mind screaming questions. But there was no time. He rushed inside as the door sealed behind him. Darkness swallowed them, leaving only the faint glow of the baby to light the way. He stumbled deeper into the passage, heart pounding. The baby now calm, its glow steady. Daniel realized the child was guiding him, leading him somewhere the mother must have known about, a place tied to the secret she whispered of. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, walls covered in glowing symbols, machines long forgotten humming faintly in the shadows. Daniel's eyes widened, filling him. This was no ordinary ruin. This was something ancient, something powerful, and at the center of it all, the baby's glow resonated like a key unlocking a hidden truth. Daniel held the child tightly, his voice trembling as he whispered, "What are you, little one? What did your mother die to protect?" Behind him, faint echoes of pursuit still lingered. Soldiers would not stop until they found him. But Daniel now knew the child was more than a burden, more than a life. To protect, this baby carried something that could shake the galaxy. And he, a simple mechanic, had been chosen to carry it. The chamber was silent except for the faint hum of ancient machines. Daniel stood frozen at the entrance, holding the baby close, his eyes wide as he tried to take in what he was seeing. Glowing symbols covered the walls, pulsing softly in rhythm with the child's faint light. The air carried a strange energy, warm and alive. He stepped forward cautiously, his boots echoing against the smooth stone. The baby shifted in his arms, its glow intensifying as if answering the symbols on the walls. Daniel felt the hairs on his arms rise. The entire chamber seemed to breathe with the child. He whispered, "This place, it knows you," his voice shaky, his mind still trying to understand. As he moved deeper inside, he saw towering structures like consoles or altars, machines built from metal older than anything he had ever worked with. Their surfaces were etched with the same markings, faint lights blinking as if waking from a long sleep. Daniel set the baby down gently on a raised platform in the center of the chamber. The moment the child touched the stone, the entire room shuddered with energy. Lights raced across the walls. Machines groaned back to life. The symbols flared brighter than fire. Daniel stumbled back, shielding his eyes. The glow spread like a wave, revealing images on the walls, moving pictures carved into light. He gasped as he saw them. Visions of battles across the stars, alien kingdoms rising and falling, and in the center of it all, a figure carrying the same glowing mark as the baby. The vision shifted, showing the child grown, standing tall with beings from many species gathered around. Some bowed, others raised weapons. War and unity clashing in the same image. Daniel's heart pounded, his breath shallow. The truth struck him like a hammer. This baby was no ordinary child. It was part of a prophecy, a symbol of unity or destruction. The alien mother had not just been saving her baby. She had been passing on a legacy, a future that could shape the galaxy. He muttered, "So this is the secret. This is why they are hunting you." His voice filled with disbelief and fear. The baby cooed softly, reaching out a tiny hand, its glow bathing Daniel in warmth. For a moment his fear eased, but then the ground shook. The chamber door rattled. Muffled voices shouted outside. The soldiers had found the entrance. Time was running out. Daniel scooped the child back into his arms, the machines around him still thrumming with power. He looked back at the glowing visions one last time, his chest heavy. The weight of his promise now doubled. It was no longer about saving a child. It was about protecting the fate of entire worlds. The door cracked as blasts pounded against it. Sparks showered the chamber. Daniel's eyes darted around, searching for a way out. Then he saw it. A narrow staircase carved into the far wall, half hidden by the glow. He ran toward it, clutching the baby tightly. He climbed as the door finally gave way. Soldiers storming in, their eyes widening at the sight of the glowing chamber. Shouts filled the air, weapons lifted, but Daniel disappeared into the shadows of the stairway, the baby's glow flickering like a guiding flame. The staircase twisted upward into a tunnel. Daniel pushed through, his legs burning, his breath ragged. The baby pressed close against him. Behind him the sounds of pursuit echoed, but he kept climbing, driven by the image burned into his mind. The child standing at the center of unity and chaos. Finally, he emerged into the open night, the tunnel spilling out onto a high cliff overlooking the burning colony. Stars glittered above, vast and endless. Daniel collapsed to his knees, gasping for air, the baby quiet in his arms. He stared out at the stars, his chest tightening. He realized he was holding not only life, but history, prophecy, destiny itself. And though fear gnawed at him, he felt a strange fire in his chest. He whispered, "I promised her, and I will not fail." Below, enemy patrol lights spread across the land, climbing closer, searching. But Daniel no longer saw himself as a lost mechanic running from war. He was now the guardian of a secret that could change the galaxy. And with the baby's glow lighting his path, he rose once more, ready to face the storm that hunted him. The stars stretched above like a sea of fire. Daniel stood at the cliff edge, the baby in his arms, the faint glow casting soft light across his tired face. He could hear the distant hum of patrol ships sweeping the valley below, their lights cutting across the land like blades. They were searching, and they were getting closer. He turned away from the cliff, forcing his legs to move. He had to find shelter, somewhere safe to think. He pushed through the rocky path until he came upon an old landing zone. Wrecked ships lay scattered, half buried in dust and vines, forgotten machines of past wars. Daniel's eyes lit with a spark of hope. Maybe he could fix one. Maybe he could escape this cursed world. He found a small freighter torn nearly in half, its hull blackened, its engines gutted, but the frame was intact. His mechanic's mind began to work, scanning for what could be salvaged. He set the baby down carefully inside the cockpit, wrapping it in cloth and whispering, "Stay here, little one. I'll get us out." Daniel moved quickly, gathering wires, scavenging parts from nearby wrecks. His hands shook with exhaustion, but the fire in his chest pushed him on. Each bolt turned, each circuit patched, Each wire soldered felt like a battle he was winning. He could hear the echo of the alien mother's voice, her trust driving him, her last breath guiding his hands. Hours passed, sweat covered his skin, dirt smeared his face. But finally, the engine coughed to life, sputtering flames, shaking the hull. It was not perfect, but it could fly. Daniel's heart leapt. Escape was possible. But then, a shadow moved at the edge of the landing zone. Voices whispered. He froze. His heart dropped. 3 figures stepped out from the darkness. Refugees, not soldiers, their clothes torn, their faces worn with hunger and fear. They looked at Daniel, then at the glowing bundle in the cockpit. Their eyes widened with greed and fear. One of them muttered, "That's the child they're hunting. It's worth more than any ship." Daniel raised his hands, his voice trembling. "Please, I don't want trouble. I just need to leave. Let us go." But the tallest one stepped forward, his eyes sharp. "You don't understand. Human, that baby is no ordinary life. It carries power. People would pay entire fleets for it. We can't let you take it away." Daniel's stomach twisted. Betrayal stung him like a blade. He had hoped for mercy, but the galaxy was cruel. The refugees drew closer, weapons in hand. Daniel stood between them and the baby, his fists clenched though he had no weapon, only resolve. "You'll have to go through me," he said, his voice low, his body shaking. The standoff stretched. The baby let out a soft cry, its glow brightening, casting light across their faces. The refugees flinched, stepping back, fear flickering in their eyes. The glow pulsed stronger, filling the cockpit with warmth. Machines around them hummed, lights sparking alive, as if the baby's presence awakened forgotten power. One of the refugees whispered, "It's dangerous, we should leave it." But the leader snarled, "No, it's valuable, take it." He lunged forward. Daniel grabbed a metal bar from the ground and swung. The clash rang out in the silent night. Chaos erupted, blows exchanged, sparks flew. Daniel fought with desperate strength, his arms burning, his chest aching. He was no soldier, but his promise gave him power. Finally, battered and bleeding, Daniel stood over the fallen men, his chest heaving. The leader groaned, glaring up with hate, but he crawled back, dragging the others, fear in their eyes as they fled into the night, leaving Daniel standing alone among the wrecks. He stumbled back into the cockpit, his vision blurred, the baby quiet now, glowing softly as if calming him. He sank into the pilot's chair, clutching the controls, whispering, "It's just us now, little one, just us." The engine roared, the ground trembled, and slowly, the freighter lifted from the ruins, sparks and smoke trailing as it clawed its way into the sky. Below, enemy patrols turned sharply, their ships rising after him, beams of light chasing across the night. Daniel's hands gripped the controls, his heart raced. The ship rattled, shaking as if it might tear apart. But he pushed harder, soaring higher into the clouds. Blasts streaked past, explosions lighting the night. The baby's glow flared brighter, the cockpit filled with strange energy. The old ship surged with power. Daniel cried out, "Hold together, just a little longer." The freighter broke through the clouds, stars filling the view, the vast darkness of space opening before them. Daniel let out a breath, but it was not relief. The enemy ships followed, their weapons locking on. He knew this fight was far from over. He looked at the child, the glow steady and calm, and whispered, "I made a promise, and I will not let them take you." His voice steady now, filled with fire. And as the stars stretched out before him, Daniel's escape began, not into freedom, but into the heart of a war far greater than he had ever imagined. The freighter shook violently as it tore through the thin atmosphere, metal groaning like a wounded beast. Daniel clutched the controls, his knuckles white. The baby's soft glow filled the cockpit, the hum of its strange light mingling with the rattle of dying engines. Behind him, enemy ships closed in, their lights flashing like hungry wolves in the dark. Blasts streaked past the hull, each one a thunderclap that shook Daniel to the bone. Sparks rained across the panels, alarms screamed. He shouted through clenched teeth, "Hold together. Come on, don't fall apart now." The freighter lurched forward, every piece threatening to collapse, yet it carried them higher, deeper into the black sea of space. He turned his gaze to the baby, wrapped tightly in cloth on the co-pilot's seat. The child's glow steady, unshaken, its tiny face calm as if unaware of the chaos. Daniel's chest tightened. He had never seen such innocence, such trust, and he swore again, whispering, "I will not let them take you, no matter what." But then, the comms crackled. A voice sharp and commanding filled the cockpit. "Human, listen carefully. You cannot escape. Hand over the child and you will live. Resist, and you will die with it." Daniel's heart pounded. His fingers hovered over the controls. The enemy was offering him life, a chance to survive, to walk away. His mind screamed at him to take it, to end this madness. But his heart burned with the memory of a dying mother's eyes, the trust she had given him in her last breath. The freighter shuddered as another blast grazed the hull, fire spreading across one wing. Daniel fought the controls, sweat dripping from his brow. The enemy voice returned. "This is your final warning. Mechanic, you are nothing. You cannot fight us. Hand over the child and live." For a moment Daniel faltered, his breath shallow. He looked at the baby, so small, so fragile, glowing softly. Unaware of the weight it carried, he thought of his own life. Meaningless, a mechanic scraping by in the shadows of war. No glory, no honor, no story worth telling. But then he thought of the vision in the chamber, the child standing as a figure of unity, the galaxy changing around it. And he realized his life had never been meaningless. It had led to this promise, to this choice. He slammed his fist against the console, his voice raw. "I am just a mechanic, but I made a promise, and I will not break it." The comms went silent, then erupted with rage. The enemy ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Daniel pulled hard on the controls. The freighter spun, shaking violently. He darted between asteroids at the edge of a debris field. Chunks of rock and metal drifted in the void. The enemy followed, their ships faster, stronger, sharper, but Daniel's hands moved with desperate precision. Every turn a gamble, every dive a prayer. The baby's glow flared suddenly, filling the cockpit with brilliance. Daniel gasped. Strange energy pulsed through the ship. The failing engines roared louder. The panels sparked but stabilized. It was as if the child was feeding the freighter's strength. Daniel shouted, "Hold on, little one. We're not done yet." The enemy fired, blasts exploding around them. One tore through the hull. Alarms shrieked. Air hissed. Daniel's vision blurred from the pressure drop. He grabbed the emergency seals, slamming them shut. His body weak, but his spirit burning. He swerved hard, guiding the ship deeper into the asteroid field. Jagged rocks scraping the hull. One wrong move, and they would be torn apart. But Daniel trusted his hands, trusted the fire in his chest, trusted the glow beside him. Finally, he spotted a massive asteroid split open, a hollow cavern stretching inside. Without hesitation he dove. The freighter scraped through, metal tearing, sparks flying. But they made it inside. Shadows swallowed them. The enemy ships swept past, missing the opening, searching elsewhere. Daniel killed the engines. The ship drifted in silence, hidden in the cavern. He sat back in the chair, his body trembling, his breath ragged. He looked at the baby, the glow soft again, peaceful, and he whispered, "We did it. We're safe, for now." But even in the quiet, Daniel knew the truth. They would not stop. They would never stop. As long as the child lived, enemies would hunt, armies would rise, blood would spill. And yet, he felt no regret. The choice was made. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to the promise he carried, the child he protected. The secret he now understood was bigger than him, bigger than anything. He reached out, touching the baby's tiny hand, the glow warming his rough skin. "I am with you," he whispered, his voice steady, "and I will stay with you until the end." Outside, the stars burned cold, the galaxy wide and merciless, and Daniel, once a forgotten mechanic, now carried a destiny that could not be undone. Days passed as Daniel hid in the darkness of the cavern, the freighter resting in silence, the baby's glow a constant reminder of the promise he had made. Daniel didn't sleep, didn't rest. He kept watch over the child, who remained calm, its soft light illuminating the shadowy walls. Daniel had thought the worst was behind him, but as the baby grew, so did the danger. Every few hours, a ship would pass overhead, searching, scanning, looking for any sign of the glowing child. The The galaxy was alive with whispers, rumors spreading like wildfire. A human mechanic, the protector of the child, who could unite the worlds or destroy them. Daniel stayed hidden, moving only when necessary. The freighter's fuel running low, the supplies dwindling. But he didn't care about hunger. He didn't care about his own exhaustion. All that mattered was the baby, its future, and the promise to a mother he had never met. Then, one night, a transmission came through the damaged comms, faint, distorted, but a voice he had not heard before crackled through the static. "Human, you are not alone." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The voice was calm but filled with authority. "There are others who believe in the child's cause, who see its potential, who will protect it." The voice paused, as if considering something. "You are the key to the galaxy's future. Your choice will shape everything." Daniel's pulse quickened. The words didn't make sense, but he knew he couldn't stay hidden forever, not with the child, not with the promise. The voice continued, "You cannot run from destiny. The galaxy has already seen you. Your path has been chosen, and it is time to move forward, to the next stage." Daniel clutched the comms tightly, shaking his head. "I'm just a mechanic. I don't know what you're talking about." But the voice was steady. "You have already made the first choice. Now the real test begins. The child will unite or divide, and you will lead it." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Daniel alone with the baby, 100 questions flooding his mind. He had never asked for this, never wanted to be the center of some galactic battle, but the truth settled in his chest like an anchor. There was no going back. The next few days passed in a blur. The freighter was fixed enough to move, and Daniel knew it was time to leave the safety of the cavern, time to stop running, time to face whatever was coming. He started the engines, the ship roaring back to life, the baby's glow flickering, like it knew something was about to change. As the freighter soared back into space, Daniel felt a shift, as if the galaxy was holding its breath. The stars stretched before him, vast and endless. But now, they felt different, as though they were no longer just distant points of light, but witnesses to a story unfolding, a story that could shape everything. Then, the comms crackled again, this time clearer, more urgent. "Human, we have found you. You cannot escape the child's destiny." Daniel didn't respond. His eyes focused on the stars ahead. He knew they were coming. They had always been coming. The enemies, the leaders, the warriors, they would all come for the baby, but he would not back down. The freighter reached a new system, a remote sector on the edge of known space. Daniel hesitated, but then he saw something in the distance, a ship, not enemy, but one that belonged to the group that had sent the transmission. He landed on an old space station, forgotten by most, its hull battered and old, but it felt safe, for now. When he entered the station, a figure stood waiting for him, cloaked in dark robes, their face hidden, but their presence felt powerful. "You have made it this far, human." The voice was calm, like the one from the transmission. "Now, you will lead the child to its destiny, whether you are ready or not." Daniel took a deep breath, his gaze hardening. "I'm not a leader. I'm just a man trying to keep a promise." The figure stepped forward, their hood falling back to reveal an alien face, different from the others Daniel had seen, but with eyes that reflected wisdom and pain. "You do not need to be a leader to guide. Human, you only need to believe in the child's future." Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. But for the first time since he had picked up the baby, he felt a strange sense of purpose. The figure extended a hand. "We have waited for this moment, the moment the child was protected, the moment the guardian was chosen." Daniel looked down at the baby, now resting quietly in his arms, its glow steady, and for the first time, he understood. The child was not just a symbol of hope or destruction. It was the key, and he, a simple mechanic, had been chosen to protect it. The figure's voice was soft. "You are no longer just a mechanic. You are the protector of the future, of the galaxy's fate, the legend of the human who save the alien child will spread across the stars." Daniel didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure: he was no longer alone. As he stepped into the darkness of the unknown, with the baby in his arms, he was ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at him. And the legend of the human who carried the fate of worlds began.